show. Man, you know that we bustin', yeah. It's a crazy ride show. Hold up, you know that we bustin', yeah. It's a crazy ride show. Hold up, you know that we bustin', yeah. Yeah, you know that we bustin', yeah. We the topic discussion, yeah. It's a crazy ride show. Man, you know that we bustin', yeah. It's a crazy ride show. Hold up, you know that we bustin', yeah. It's a crazy ride show. Hold up, you know that we bustin', yeah. Yeah, you know that we bustin', yeah. We the topic discussion, yeah. It's a crazy ride show. Man, you know that we bustin', yeah. It's a crazy ride show. Hold up, you know that we bustin', yeah. It's a crazy ride show. Hold up, you know that we bustin', yeah. Yeah, you know that we bustin', yeah. We the topic discussion, yeah. It's a crazy ride show. Hold up, you know that we bustin'. It's a crazy ride show. Man, you know that we bustin', yeah. It's a crazy ride show. Hold up, you know that we bustin', yeah. It's a crazy ride show. Hold up, you know that we bustin', yeah. Yeah, you know that we bustin', yeah. We the topic discussion, yeah. It's a crazy ride show. Man, you know that we bustin', yeah. It's a crazy ride show. Hold up, you know that we bustin', yeah. It's a crazy ride show. Hold up, you know that we bustin', yeah. Yeah, you know that we bustin', yeah. We the topic discussion, yeah. It's a crazy ride show. Man, you know that we bustin', yeah. It's a crazy ride show. Hold up, you know that we bustin', yeah. It's a crazy ride show. Hold up, you know that we bustin', yeah. Yeah, you know that we bustin', yeah. We the topic discussion, yeah. It's a crazy ride show. Hold up, you know that we bustin'. It's a crazy ride show. Man, you know that we bustin', yeah. It's a crazy ride show. Hold up, you know that we bustin', yeah. It's a crazy ride show. Hold up, you know that we bustin', yeah. Yeah, you know that we bustin', yeah. We the topic discussion, yeah. It's a crazy ride show. Man, you know that we bustin', yeah. It's a crazy ride show. Hold up, you know that we bustin', yeah. It's a crazy ride show. Hold up, you know that we bustin', yeah. Yeah, you know that we bustin', yeah. We the topic discussion, yeah. It's a crazy ride show. Man, you know that we bustin', yeah. It's a crazy ride show. Hold up, you know that we bustin', yeah. It's a crazy ride show. Hold up, you know that we bustin', yeah. Yeah, you know that we bustin', yeah. We the topic discussion, yeah. It's a crazy ride show. Hold up, you know that we bustin'.
Yo, what's good? It is Lake County Unfiltered, the Crazy Riot Show. It's the Boilos Crazy. We are live on another Wednesday night, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm here with another special guest. He's a friend. He's been across from me once before. State's Attorney, Lake County State's Attorney, Eric Rinehart is in the building right now. We could clap. I'm going to clap it up. That's what I do. There we go. I got a clap in the back. Shout out to that. What's up, Eric? How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Yeah. The campaign is going. The government work is going.
Yeah.
The family misses me. But it's important work, and it's a way. It's the way to make people safer, and it's the way to make our county better, which I love so much.
Absolutely. So I knew you before you became the state's attorney. Same guy. Haven't changed too much. Too much. But how different is this job than what you expected it to be? Obviously, the defense attorney for many years, kind of coming on the other side, as some would say. How does it feel being in that position?
Our justice system is one of the biggest players and actors in our society, in our culture, in our county. I've worked in this county for 20 years.
Yeah.
Working for my clients. Back in those days, I was working for individuals. At some point, after you've been doing it long enough, you say, well, I'm fighting for my client, but I also want to improve the system.
Yeah.
Those two things are not in, those two things are not in conflict, but you wake up and you think about both things, right? First of all, let's help my guy.
Yeah.
And two, how can we make the system better? So in 2018, 2019, I began to think about this idea that our justice system and our state's attorney's office was not doing a good job of helping people, of really getting to the root causes of crime, of focusing on violent crime, of making sure that our victim specialists were could speak Spanish if we had Spanish victims,
Yeah.
that our victim specialists look like the population that they were serving.
Yeah.
Whether we had enough attorneys focus on domestic violence. I'm wearing the purple pin because it's Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Nice.
And so I felt that there wasn't a prioritization, that everything was pretty, everything is everything, and we can do everything as the government. And we can't do everything as the government. We have to set because we have limited resources. So we have to set priorities.
Yeah.
So I felt that the office needed to be closer to the people. I felt that the office needed to get real about how we actually help people. Stop doing platitudes and cliches. I think that's who my predecessor was. I think that's who my opponent is. And I think it's empty. I think it is not about plans. I'm happy to talk about my plans and my record, but when I looked at that office and what it can be to the people, and how it should act within a justice system that has not been fair to people, how it should act within a justice system that isn't protecting people, I wanted to make a change.
How much resistance did you feel coming into a space where you're kind of doing some stuff that's never been done before? Did you feel resistance, or did everybody kind of flow with you as you were doing
We have
it?
amazing prosecutors and victim specialists in our office. They are public servants. They take this work home at night. I recently received an award from a nonprofit, and I dedicated that award to them because they're the one doing the work every day with victims, with people who need help. The resistance has been more sort of outside of the office when it comes to new programs and new ideas. The county board took a couple years pushing back on my salary requests and my new program requests, but because of the funding issue, not because there was an ideological, not because they disagreed with what I was doing, but it's like, we got to,
the money's got to be there.
The money's got to be there. And so there was a little bit of pushback there. The judges, frankly, have pushed back on the Safety Act. They make individual statements in court on the record. They're not saying this behind the scenes, which, as Americans, we're all allowed to have our opinion. But they're saying stuff. They're saying stuff on the record, and they're pushing back on some of the Safety Act stuff. A lot of our prevention.
Deep. That's kind of deep to hear. What does that say about our kind of our nucleus of the judicial system?
Well, let me finish this thought.
Sure. Go ahead.
So the prevention work, which is something I want to make sure we talk a lot about. The judges don't have a role in that.
Okay.
And so we've gotten a lot of grants, which is outside money to help with the prevention work, and I know we'll talk a lot about that. When it comes to the judges and the Safety Act, they say it. I mean, they say it out loud. They're court reporters typing it down. And so we got to talk about that. We got to be partners, but. They don't usually say when I'm in the room. And so nobody seems to want to. The judges don't seem to want to debate me. They want to say it in front of one of my assistants, and it's sort of like, well, the assistants, doing their job, focus on the individual case.
Right.
As everybody knows, I'm for the Safety Act. I think it's a good reform, and so the judges sort of say it to the assistants, and the assistants are like, okay, but I'm trying to focus on this case. I'm trying to help this victim.
Right.
And the judges, they do.
It's a political thing. The Safety Act has turned into a weapon, and both sides, where people that are against it use it as a badge to say, well, that's a softer way of holding people accountable in the system. What do you say to that?
Yeah, that's totally wrong. It's unfortunate that it's gotten put into those. I don't love the word political.
Okay.
No. I want to talk about it.
Yeah. I've heard that tonight.
I want to talk about it because I want to talk about it. There's partisan, there's political, there's diplomacy, right? There's when I tell you a board member and I are disagreeing, does our party matter, or are we just saying, well, that's kind of gotten political, right? So the word kind of gets a little bit, thrown over everything. Sure. But the Safety Act is political and partisan, because the Republicans came out and said that you are old enough for Y2K, right? Do you remember the Y2K bug?
Yes.
Me too. Sometimes I talk to people about this and they're like, what the? So the Y2K bug, for your younger listeners, is that when it became 2000, when it moved from 12/31/99 to 2000, the whole world was going to blow up, right? The nuclear weapons were going to fire because the computers didn't know how to read 000.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm sorry, they were Republicans. They were Republicans. They were scared. They were trying to scare people. They literally made it sound like on midnight, when the Safety Act goes effective, it was going to be the purge.
Yeah.
Okay, those people have to be held accountable because that word purge and this terrible idea that murderers and sex offenders were getting out at midnight, it impacted people, Carlos. It scared people. Okay, now imagine being a victim of a crime and you have the entire, frankly, Republican Party telling people, well, it's all these offenders are getting out.
Yeah.
That's bad stuff. Okay, and they should be held accountable for that. My opponent opposed the Safety Act. She has played into the fear mongering. It's not soft on crime. It's a totally different way to think about pretrial detention. Here's your problem. I could go on and on about the Safety Act. Can I do a little more on it?
Please.
All right. So we have had trials for a long time.
Yeah.
What do we do with somebody who has been identified? Did they arrest people in 1000 AD? I don't know.
Yeah.
Somebody's been identified, or we're going to have the trial.
Jesus.
Right. We're going to have a trial in a week, or we're going to have a trial in 2 weeks. Now it's become a long period of time.
Yeah.
What do we do when we've identified somebody who the system says did it, and we have a trial during a later period in time? We have struggled with that as a justice system forever.
Yeah.
You're presumed innocent, right?
Yeah.
People are texting you right now. You're presumed innocent. Why should you be held?
Right.
Then but we also have to protect people while we get through the justice system.
Yeah.
These are really tough questions.
That's the crux of
That is the crux of the problem.
Yeah.
You know what the answer is not? How much money I got. That's the problem. We have relied upon a system that says...
You're saying like a guy could do something and he could pay
he
to
could
get
cash
out and
out.
he's outside.
Yep.
Yeah.
So why is the answer as to whether or not you're in waiting for trial? That's what we're talking about. A judge and the prosecutors have found that they think you committed the crime they think somebody committed the crime beyond a reasonable doubt.
Let me get that part, because that's the part that is, because if you're going to detain me and keep me, there's no chance for me to go out.
Under the Safety Act.
Under the Safety Act, the prosecutor's office are making sure that they're prosecuting kind of an airtight case if they're going to detain you without any possibility of you getting out.
Yes.
But there's also another side to that where you could be released if it's another part. What's the other part?
All right, so the way the Safety Act works is the judge, the prosecutor, and this is why the judges don't like it, by the way, because the prosecutor triggers the process.
Okay.
By the way, this is exactly how it happens in federal court, and it's been like this for 40 years in federal court. Okay, and nobody has had a problem with it. What I'm about to describe is what the federal court has done for 40 years. The government files a petition. The judge decides whether to grant the petition, an application, a motion, whatever you want to call it, to hold the person who's accused.
Yeah.
What you have to show in that petition is that there's evidence, a lot of evidence against the person, and that they are a threat to the community, or that they could flee.
Right.
All right. We're going to call that the Safety Act.
That's over there. Yeah.
Now, sometimes the prosecutors don't file the petition. Sometimes the offense is a nonviolent offense, and a prosecutor couldn't file a petition.
Right.
Okay. That's over there. The cash system is the cash system was...
It's done.
It's $50,000 next case.
But is there a part of it where...
They just say the word cash and they move on to the next case. They don't know how much money the person has in their bank account because they don't get tax returns. They don't know how much money the person has in their car. And they don't know how much money their family has.
So what's this element, because this may just be people just talking, but is there a part where I do a crime, but I don't actually go to jail because of the Safety Act?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
So the Safety Act is very focused on violent crimes, on domestic violence.
Gotcha.
Every victims advocacy group supported the Safety Act.
Okay.
I've never heard an opponent of the Safety Act, including my opponent, explain how every victims group is for this. These are people who've dedicated their lives to advocating for victims.
Yeah.
Every victims group is for the Safety Act because we can hold domestic batterers and sex offenders without worrying about them getting money from their bank account, which we don't know about, or their family. Okay.
Right.
There are some nonviolent crimes that cannot be detained. Okay?
Right.
All right.
Right. Nonviolent.
Gotcha. And usually first-time offenses. And so in 2017, and this is important because it was there have been some arguments that the Safety Act and criminal justice reforms are a reaction to the murder of George Floyd.
Right.
That's not true.
I thought that. I thought
that's
that
okay.
till right
It's
now.
okay.
Yeah.
In 2017 and all the way through 2020, and this is an important date, George Floyd was murdered in May of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
In April of 2020, the Illinois Supreme Court Task Force, with prosecutors and police and judges on it,
Mm-hmm.
recommended that we not detain nonviolent offenders. That was a recommendation from the Supreme Court that eventually the legislature passed
Gotcha.
and the governor signed.
Gotcha.
For the nonviolent offenses, you are not held awaiting trial. There is false information that you cannot be arrested. You got to make a distinction here between being handcuffed, put in a squad car,
Yeah.
driven to the police department, processed, put in a holding cell, taken to court. Then you see the judge, and the judge and the prosecutors say, "We're not holding you." But think about how I've de-escalated the situation. Maybe for a victim in a bar fight or whatever.
Yeah.
I've taken the person, put them in handcuffs, and I've done that whole process. And I take them to a judge the next morning, and then the judge says, "You're not being detained."
Right.
The amount of false information about not being able to arrest people is crazy.
Yeah.
And it's the fault of the Republicans. And actually, there's a Democrat very involved, too, a state's attorney from another county I won't name.
Yeah.
But it is primarily the fault of people who say you can't be arrested.
Okay.
Now, there's an incredibly small category of people who you have to start out by giving them a ticket. Trespassers and disorderly conduct.
Wow.
Yeah, trespassers and disorderly
What
conduct.
do you?
So the cop has to start by giving a ticket. He can't go handcuffs.
Right.
Unless the guy is a threat to the public, and then he can go handcuffs.
Gotcha.
Those are the only two offenses: trespassing and disorderly conduct.
Gotcha.
If the officer believes he's a danger, he can go handcuffs.
Yeah.
Everybody else, retail theft, DUIs. These are nonviolent offenses. Retail theft,
You're going
DUIs. You're gonna be arrested,
Right.
and taken to a judge for a short period of time,
Right.
then given conditions. Don't go back to the Walmart.
Gotcha.
Don't drink
Gotcha.
alcohol.
Gotcha.
Don't
Gotcha.
use drugs.
Gotcha.
That time period is significant, though, because it lets us assess the person. And then when the prosecutor's office doesn't file the petition, or the judge doesn't file, or the judge doesn't find that they should be held, or it doesn't qualify,
Yeah.
then the person goes home.
Because the
You
narrative.
can also release people from the police station if the police want.
Yeah, because the narrative is that if I do a nonviolent crime, I'm just gonna. There is no process. It's like you don't have any process.
that's not true.
But you're saying there is a process.
It's up to
it's under the discretion of the
police
officer.
It's up to the police
Gotcha,
whether you are
gotcha.
driven to court.
Got you.
That is up to the police. And I spent hours and hours and hours training police on this to think about this in three spaces: the street, the booking room, and the courtroom. I said, when it comes to the courtroom, let the lawyers and the judges worry about it. If
Yeah.
everybody has to go diving for their binder because it's a new reform, who cares?
Yeah.
When it comes to the booking room, we want the officers are in a booking room.
Yeah.
People are safe. They've been patted down.
Yeah.
Okay. The officers think about whether to release somebody. And then there's the street. Literally, the only thing that changed under the Safety Act was trespassers and disorderly conduct. You got to start with a ticket.
So I just had
That's the truth.
No,
That
I
is
get
the
that.
truth.
I get that, but that narrative is I've never heard it like that before. So that opens my eyes up to something different. But I just had the privilege of watching you a couple hours ago in a debate with your opponent, and you guys talked about crime, and you mentioned that crime was down.
It is.
And then she rebutted you and said undercharging us. I think that's what she said, something like that. Talk to me about crime being down in Lake County, and then talk to me about the concept of undercharging someone.
All right. You got to think about what happens when a crime occurs.
Okay.
First of all, homicides are at their lowest in years.
Okay.
Shootings are way down because of the Gun Violence Prevention Initiative and the preventative work that I hope we can talk a little more about.
Sure.
That my opponent has directly criticized. She put on a flyer that I was wasting money giving grant money to some of the guys you and I know who are out there helping people.
Sure.
She directly criticized it. I hope somebody asked her about it.
Yeah.
It's on her flyer. So you have to think about you got to think about a crime happening. Then you got to think about whether it's reported. It's a pyramid. Then you got to think about whether the person is identified. Then you got to think about whether it's charged.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Happens, reported, identified, and charged. Okay.
Gotcha.
Her claim about undercharging is nonsense.
Okay.
Because
What is that? What is that?
what she is, it's wrong. I got to say it?
Yeah.
All right. I
'Cause I
got to
don't
say
know.
it.
I
I
don't
got
know.
to say. All right. Let me start with a homicide.
Okay.
All right. So a homicide is a death by a human.
Okay.
Okay? That's it. It's a death caused by a human. Notice I didn't use the word murder.
Right.
A homicide is a death caused by a human, regardless of whether the crime is solved or charged. A homicide is a death of a human, regardless of whether it's solved or charged.
Gotcha.
Who counts homicides? The coroner,
Right.
not Rinehart. Okay.
Okay.
So when I
can
say
see how that fits
when I
there.
say
Yeah.
homicides are down, I'm talking about coroner data. Let's say they're all unsolved. Let's say they're all unsolved.
Yeah. Yeah.
That means nobody brings anything to my office. By
Gotcha.
the way, they're not all unsolved. We're
Yeah,
solving more and
yeah.
more than ever.
Yeah, yeah.
But let's say they were all unsolved. It would still be a good thing if homicides went down.
Gotcha.
You'd say, well, we want to get to we're at 13 this year, and that's too many. Okay, but if you keep going down and down, and you say, well, 4 homicides is terrible for those families,
Yeah.
but they're unsolved. Okay, we're counting homicides. We're counting what's happening in the community. All right. So if homicides are going down,
Right.
I didn't bring up the word charging. I didn't bring up the word first-degree murder versus second-degree murder.
Right.
So my charging decisions, our office's charging decisions, don't impact the homicides, right? Let me give you an example. Let's say there's a justified shooting. A justified shooting.
Sure.
Self-defense.
Sure.
We count it as a homicide. It's not charged. I'm still counting it as a homicide.
Gotcha.
Because I think we all want our homicides to go down. Even self-defense shootings, everybody has a right to defend themselves, and we don't charge the case. But don't we all want there to be less death?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
My charging decisions don't affect the homicides.
Gotcha.
All right, but Eric, do they affect the shootings? No, because ShotSpotter in North Chicago says that shootings are down over the last 4 years. We call Waukegan, North Chicago, and Zion. For you listeners out there, go talk to your police chiefs and your records guys. Shootings are down
Yeah.
in Waukegan, North Chicago, and Zion. Now, notice I didn't have to talk about coroner data, right? We're
Yeah.
just talking about shootings.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about solved.
Right. Right.
There's no charging decision. When I tell you that shootings are down, I haven't made a single charging decision. I'm counting law enforcement data. That's how cynical and dishonest her campaign has been. She has no response to the homicides going down. She has no response to shootings going down, and I want them to be zero. I don't want to sound like an accountant here.
Yeah.
Every shooting or death is a funeral that we got to prevent. There's no way to be harder on crime than to prevent it.
What do you?
So this undercharging thing
Yeah.
is really dishonest. The homicides and shootings are going down, and it has nothing to do with my charging decision.
Got you. So you're saying if someone else was to hypothetically be in that seat, and charging harder would not affect the number of
The
homicides?
charging harder, charging the homicides are the people who've passed away, who've died.
Right.
And I know we might be having people who've been impacted by that.
Sure, sure.
But she keeps saying this. And we're making Lake County safer because violent crime is down, because shootings are down, and we're going to talk about why. Because shootings are down, because homicides are down. That's just the truth. Violent crime is down in the United States 13% over the last year.
Yeah.
In Lake County, it's in the 40s. Okay? So I'm aware that there's a national decline. I hope that's because we're coming out of COVID. I
Yeah,
hope that's right.
yeah.
So I get that, but it's at a higher rate than the nation.
Sure,
And I think it's because of some of the programs we're doing. I'm humble about it. It could be for a lot of reasons. It could be because of the amazing work of the police, but we've given them more technology tools. It could be because we have a violent crime unit and we're winning our trials. It could be because of the Safety Act, because we're not letting violent offenders get out. It could be for a lot of reasons. But her argument that I should lose my job because violent crime is on the rise is nonsense when it's on the decline.
Got you.
Because we're counting things in the community. We're not counting
Gotcha.
things that come out of my office.
Gotcha.
If I was counting murders,
Yeah.
then she'd say, "Oh, well, he's just counting his own murders."
Right.
And to give you a quick, he should have called it a murder instead of an involuntary manslaughter. So he's only counting murders.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go to my dashboard. I've never counted murders.
Wow.
Because you have to solve the murder, and you have to, it could be a justified shooting.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We're counting homicides.
How do you respond to your opponent saying that you're soft on crime? Well, she says, well, because I believe that she takes, from sitting down with her, she has a certain pride about being hard on criminals. Like, if you do something wrong, we're going to hold you accountable. And she's saying that you're not doing that, or you haven't done that. How do you respond to that?
Well, so first of all, to hold people without being able to use cash is a good start. 70% of child pornographers, 70% of people charged with child pornography were posting cash. Now we're holding 70% were posting cash.
Wow.
We are now holding 100% of those guys. They happen to be guys.
Yeah.
We're holding 100% of those guys. So that's a good way to talk about being hard on crime.
Sure.
Okay. Her other point is that we're not holding offenders accountable. That's just not true.
Okay.
We are winning our trials. We are putting prison sentences on shooters. I think we're putting higher prison sentences on shooters. I think we're putting more prison sentences on armed robberies, and armed robberies are way down. Okay. And so actually our probation rate on armed robbery is less than my predecessor. But we don't have to talk about my predecessor just to say that things are moving in the right direction. So the reports of armed robberies, that's a law enforcement data, have plummeted. I think it has something to do. I think it's for a lot of reasons, but that has plummeted. And look, I said this at the debate tonight. We're a democracy. You have to decide who to vote for. Every crime is a tragedy, but every time we prevent a crime, we're doing a good thing, which is why we've invested $5 million in our gun violence prevention initiative. That's why crime is down. But we got to have numbers. We got to have numbers. That's not the only part of the story.
Yeah.
But if you're analyzing your elected officials, if you're deciding where we should put our millions of dollars, we have to have numbers as part of the story. That's never been done in a state's attorney's office before. And it keeps me accountable. You heard me say this tonight.
Yeah.
It keeps me accountable. If there's a racial disparity in how we're handing out diversion, which there definitely was under former state's attorney Rinehart, in 2017 or 2018, 0 black people got diversion. 0.
What's diversion?
Diversion is when you, on a nonviolent crime, you say, go do public service hours, go do drug treatment, go do alcohol treatment, and we'll drop your case.
Yeah.
So my predecessor had a diversion program, but it was not racially fair. And I've made it fair, and I've expanded it.
Yeah.
And the system doesn't want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about these racial disparities. And by having a dashboard, I'm talking about it. You know that I am somebody who deeply believes in talking about this and about getting it right.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, the old guard doesn't ever want to talk about this.
Yeah.
You heard her answer today about citizens versus residents.
Yeah.
Man, was that telling.
Yeah.
Man, was that telling.
Yeah,
I'm here to protect the residents of Lake County.
Yeah.
Before I became state's attorney, all the paperwork said, we're here to protect the citizens of Lake County. Does everybody get the difference?
Yeah.
I'm here to protect the residents of Lake County
Yeah.
because everybody deserves help. That is our moral mandate. And if you have the word citizens, if you're telling new attorneys and new domestic violence counselors and new people in the office that, well, it's for the citizens of Lake County, you're immediately excluding people.
Wow.
And just thinking about that is one of the things I hope I'm bringing to this job.
Yeah. You, in the position of a state's attorney, being a prosecutor, some would say that job is simply to prosecute.
Yeah.
That's what your job is. Hey, somebody does a crime, they're going to jail. How do you decide how much they're going to get? Do you decide to pull the charge or not? You've kind of made that job a little bit more multifaceted, other than the people that I've known that's done the job in the past. How do you go into these? How do you do that? How do you got the gun violence prevention?
Yep.
You've done a lot of different programs that are not of a prosecutor or maybe in another space, a district attorney. Why do you do that? How do you do that, and why do you do that?
The United States has
some people say just prosecute and that's it.
The United States has more resources than any country in the world, and we have one of the worst crime problems in the world. Let's talk about that. Okay? So whatever we're doing is not working for the victims and the people of the United States. Let's do some new things. Let's move upstream and address the root causes intentionally and urgently. I'm sorry. The old system didn't talk about these things urgently. You know me. We got to go upstream. We got to end the school to prison pipeline. We got to make sure that kids have chances at jobs and at youth mentoring, and that the people that they're seeing in the justice system look like them and have their experiences. And my opponent, I keep saying predecessor and opponents because they're kind of the same. My opponent keeps criticizing what is basically a youth mentoring program. The Gun Violence Prevention Initiative is a lot of things. It's the philosophy and personnel and funding to address the problem of gun violence.
Yeah.
She says that I've given money to these. They're mediators. They're youth counselors. They're mediators. They're guys that you and I know.
Sure.
And we're not wasting our money, Mary. We're trying to save lives, and we should spend a lot of money to save lives. And for her to criticize it is terrible, and it shows her lack of vision about addressing gun violence. It's working. It's a great investment.
Yeah.
And so why should the prosecutor's office do this? Because we're here. Because we're the ones that have the information about a root cause. When a case comes in, we can look at the person and see what has happened in their life. Now look, on a murder case, the story's over for the case.
Yeah.
We want to keep always supporting the victims. But the story is over. But we can certainly learn a lot about that file and go try to prevent another crime.
Sure.
Okay. The Gun Violence Prevention Initiative isn't like giving people who've murdered somebody counseling.
Yeah.
It's giving kids counseling. It's taking what we learn about these terrible tragedies on the one hand and trying to take what we learn and get more mentoring and more programming to kids. That's all
and
it is.
I think it's when I look at it, and I never really put my opinion in anything, but when I'm looking at the outside of it, I see that there was a way of doing it. There was a way to do this job. And that job was to prosecute crime, whether it's high or low. I didn't necessarily care about that part. I'm caring about whoever coming through the system.
Sure.
My job is to prosecute.
But we're doing that too, right? But we're doing that too. They're not.
Right.
They're not mutually exclusive,
Sure,
right? They're not one or the other. We've gotten $10 million in new grants, $5 million for gun violence prevention. There's another $5 million on other work.
Yeah.
We've gotten $10 million in new grants to do both things.
Gotcha.
Her criticism of me might be that I'm not focusing enough on the prosecution stuff. Except we've increased the number of prosecutors. We've increased resources for the cyber lab, which is where the police take the cell phone with a warrant, always a warrant, with a warrant. They can analyze phones.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're doing that part. Our clearance rates under my predecessor, his last clearance rate of murders was in the 50s. Mine's in the 70s. So we're doing that part too. Her undercharging story is ridiculous. The attacks on the Safety Act in terms of just letting people go are ridiculous, and they're not based in data or real people's experiences. They are based on what the Republican Party started trying to say in 2022 to take down J.B. Pritzker, to try to take down as many state legislators as they could. It didn't work then. It's not going to work now.
Got you. Let me get to some comments. I got Ray Cinco. I think that's his name. He says, great debate, by the way. Looking forward to moving forward. I'm worried about actions after the presidential election. Praying for our community. A lot of work to do. A lot of work to do, Lake County. The work of the people doesn't just belong to elected officials. Miss Celeste, I'm gonna mess your name up. Celeste Foster says, how has he approached mental health related prosecution? What programs has been involved in that are solution based? I can't read tonight.
Can I do both those?
Yes.
By the way, both those answers fit together, by the way.
Okay.
I loved what Ray Cinco said. Mr. Cinco, nice to meet you. So he's saying we're a community, right? This idea that the government stands apart from the community, certainly is based in a lot of people's experiences. The structural racism and economic racism of this country was real, is real, will be real for a long time.
Yeah.
And so I'm very aware that when I say the government is the people and the people are the government, that's not everybody's experience, okay?
Yeah.
But having said that, that should be the ideal.
Right.
And so when he brings this up, it's a great point that we all need to work together. We have an amazing mosaic and tapestry of 501c3s in this county. It's really amazing coverage. I've worked in other counties a little bit, and it's just amazing coverage that we have. We can solve a lot of problems. So I appreciate his point about all of us working together, including on the issue of mental health. And so, as a former defense attorney, Many of my clients had mental health issues. We have an amazing living room wellness center. It's the crisis center that it was certainly been in the planning stages for a long time. It got executed while I've been state's attorney, and it's still going. That's where police, under their discretion, are allowed to bring mental health people in mental health crisis to a warm handoff area, to a safe place, and to a place where they can get a referral for mental health treatment. They can stay there. They can get what they need. And the police are making this decision on a nonviolent case. The other big case with mental health is in our mental health court, which I think needs to be bigger. We need to be expanding that. I'm working very hard with the county board to get more resources into that.
Yeah.
But our specialty courts have expanded for our prosecutors who are working on specialty courts have expanded for the first time while I've been state's attorney.
Yeah.
So I think we are morally required to treat, and mental illness is a root cause of crime. We are morally required to treat these things, to talk about these things, and to make sure that we get the funding we need.
Sure.
I love that question. I really
Good question.
appreciate
Great
that.
question. Another question comes in. How have you worked to reduce racial disparities in the criminal justice system, and what specific results have been achieved so far?
Yeah. So first of all, you can go onto our government website, lcsao.org, lcsao.org. Can we get that like flashing?
Yeah,
LCSAO.
Mighty comment.
We got some laughter
One of
finally.
Eric guys, yeah.
I've been kind of serious here. I mean, it is serious stuff, but I got a little laughter. LCSAO.org has a data dashboard that shows how we are trying to reduce racial disparities. First of all, we got to call it out. I thought that was going to be a little easier than it has been. We got to call it out, okay? We got to address racial profiling. We have to address the racial disparities in our diversion system, which I have addressed. If you go to that website, you'll see that there's a data dashboard that shows, under my predecessor, there was not racial equality.
Gotcha.
40%, unfortunately, and this is what I'm about to say is a racial disparity. I understand the problem with what I'm about to say, but 40% of people charged with a felony are African American. It's actually 30 to 40%. Many years there was less than 10%, even 0% of folks of black folks getting diversion in our state's attorney's office. Diversion is almost completely up to the discretion of the state's attorney.
Wow.
The judge doesn't get involved in diversion.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got to get that number. We can't have racial disparities, and we don't have racial disparities anymore because I put the right people in place. I've done implicit bias training. I've done DEI training, and I've called it out. I've sent materials to prosecutors. I've asked prosecutors to break down the old ways of thinking about things, and it's working.
Yeah.
And it's working. And we've got a new grant from the MacArthur Foundation to expand our diversion, and I'm thrilled about it.
Wow. It's pretty good. Make sure you guys share this video. Like this video, hit the heart button for me for a couple reasons. We got Dwayne Springs in the building. Somebody gotta be great. He's watching. He says, respect to the fact that Eric speaks to the fact of historical and current racism. The Safety Act is simply fair, putting money into prevention and prosecution again simply makes sense. Cole gave a chain gang philosophy as her plan, he says. That was Dwayne Springs.
I did not watch your show. I didn't see what she said about that.
Okay.
I know a lot of things that
You
she
gotta
has
watch
said.
my show, Eric.
Come on, that's fair. We call that tough, but fair. That's tough.
True.
That's
No,
tough
I
and fair.
I got you. Another question: how has your office balanced prosecuting organized retail theft and ensuring that smaller nonviolent crimes don't receive disproportionate sentences?
Yeah.
You kind of spoke to that earlier a little
Yeah,
bit.
well, I think that we got to be really thoughtful about this. Some of the organized retail theft offenders aren't from around here. Okay, they're from other places, and so the Attorney General does do a lot of these. I'm not passing the buck, but when you have multiple counties involved, you have to have the Attorney General because the Attorney General can go everywhere.
Right.
And so he proposed some new language in Springfield that made this easier to prosecute, that made it should be a little bit heavier because it was not being treated as a systemic problem. It was sort of being treated as like, well, this is retail theft only. Well, these organized retail theft rings are bigger. So I was complimented by a police chief publicly. I don't reveal private conversations. Okay, it seems like my opponent tries to say that she's having all these private conversations with folks.
Yeah.
I don't think that's right because you can't test that.
Yeah.
But a police chief did publicly praise the work we were doing on organized retail thefts. But the real question I notice is how do we prevent disparities in that? Data. We now have a new docketing system that's going to let us count whether we are giving probation, jail, court supervision to people. And when we can count it, we can identify these racial disparities.
Sure.
See, diversion was very easy to identify or to sort because it was such a small group. I'm trying to make it bigger.
Sure.
But now that we have this new docketing system, we're going to be able to do a lot more of this.
Sure.
I wish I could tell you that I wish I could tell you that things were moving so fast with data. It is so slow. It is 100% something that I thought would move faster.
Yeah.
I think I've been a leader on it because we got the first data dashboard because I've proposed a crime task force, a data task force in Springfield. I'm really proud of that. My opponent makes fun of me when I go to Springfield. That's how we help people, by the way, is to go to Springfield and get new legislation and new money.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of that, Carlos. I'm telling you, prior state's attorneys never talked about data.
Yeah.
They didn't see that as part of their job. That's part of my job.
When we talk
so that
about,
you can test me.
No, yes,
So that you can
I
ask
gotta
me a
put
question.
the numbers, and I gotta
5 years from now,
gotta hold you to it.
5 years from now, you're going to say, why does it say this?
Yeah.
How is he going to have a moment where he says, why are the crime stats this? If we don't start counting more crime stats.
I think that's an issue for a lot of stuff in our region where we talk about quantification of how much can we really quantify versus how much do we feel.
Yeah.
Because we feel, like you said, if one person is murdered, we feel it the same way if 10 people were murdered, in individual cases, it's the same thing. We feel that. But like you said, quantifying it and separating and sorting, it could be a slower process, which would prove success or failure on whoever. But I know that's a tough road to walk.
It's really tough. I got two 10-year-old boys, okay? And an amazing wife named Stephanie. I got two 10-year-old boys. And so this is real for all of us who love anyone, okay? I never want to sound like I'm just counting these things and don't care. But on the other hand, if you don't invest money and think about prevention, then I'm not sure if you care either, okay? And the way to get money in for prevention and the way to have programming, because we do care, is to count things. How are we gonna get rid of racial disparities if we're not counting? Okay. How are we gonna see if our money is working if we're not counting? So I get that crime can be down, but is the fear of crime ever going to be down? Okay. And that's okay. We're all just people. We're people with kids. We're people we love. We have neighbors we love. We love each other.
Yeah.
And so that fear is always going to be real. And I'm not saying, I'm only saying we got to talk about what I just said. I don't have an answer to that part.
Why is that? Because you give us a sight into the other side a little bit. Why are people scared that are inside of the system, that are your predecessors, as you said, scared to talk about the racial disparities? Black and brown people are targeted more for this and that. Why is that something that they, on the other side, will not reveal as a truth, but more of a myth in some conversation? Because on the other side of it, it's like, I feel that, but to the point, again, can we quantify that? Is it real? Because I know it's real.
That's hard to answer because
I know.
But let me go personal here so I can. We all have implicit bias, and so there is actual there's training and mental exercises that you do to think about it, to identify it, to try to counteract it. A really good example is to think about. A mother calls in to the office and complains about something. You still instantly think of your own mom. I mean, like instantly. I mean, think of your mom's voice. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Not somebody else's. And I'm not even talking about race yet.
Yeah.
Not somebody else's mom. Your mom.
Yeah.
Okay. There was a something happened years ago in a metro station. Okay. I used to be in metro stations when I was commuting up here. I instantly had an interest in that case. That doesn't make me bad at all. That to me just makes me a person.
Sure.
Okay? Sure. And so there are things you can do to identify it. I really love that Metro example, right? You can do things to identify that things feel different. I don't think that our justice system is super comfortable with what I just said. Okay? I don't think our justice system is super comfortable with that, even though it is true.
Yeah.
Implicit bias is actually, not to get nerdy, is actually been recognized by social scientists.
Yeah.
And it's an instruction to our jurors. So the legal system is accepting it. It's talked about in other states. It's talked about in our federal system. There is a lack of progress in Lake County on this topic. And it's one of the things that I'm going to keep fighting for.
Yeah.
Progress.
Earlier you mentioned school to prison pipeline.
Yeah.
Talk to me about revealing that. Again, we've been hearing that phrase forever. What is that? What is school to prison?
So the school to prison pipeline is and certainly you may have people listening who have a more technical answer to this, but my concern about it is that individuals who are identified in schools and some of these racial disparities play out. We know that there's not fairness when it comes to educational opportunities, when it comes to housing opportunities. And so when individuals are identified early in their lives as being a problem or as being disciplined, that they never bounce back from that.
Sure.
And so if you never get out of that pipeline, if you are literally trapped in this iron tunnel, this steel tunnel, that you're not going to be able to go anywhere other than a prison.
Yeah.
That's why we have to invest so much more in education. I hope that you will have the regional superintendent of schools on sometime.
Yeah.
Man, that is a kind of a boring title, but boy, is it important.
No, seriously.
But it's so important, right?
Definitely.
We have to have innovative leaders like Dr. Karner. He and I share a contractor. We both are funding this violence prevention person. His name's Trey Baker. He's amazing.
Yeah. Trey's my guy, man.
Yeah, Trey's amazing.
I knew Trey when we was marching in a parade.
Absolutely, and Karner, and I want to give Karner credit. He put him on a grant first, and I said, "Oh, that's a good idea."
Yeah.
And so Karner gets credit. And so, look, we have to reach our youth any way we can. I mean, this is a crisis in our society, and we have to have urgency and innovation and passion. And so, am I a little different than prior state's attorneys? Yeah. Some people said I was very passionate tonight. That's because this really matters. This is people's lives. Okay, this is people's lives. This is hope. And one of the biggest parts of the school to prison pipeline that I've read about, I haven't experienced it in light of where I sit. And what my history is, and frankly, what my kids' history has been, is that our society has, for a lot of big structural reasons, pushed and shut down the social imagination of young people, or what's called the social imagination, what they think they can become.
Wow.
And as structural racism and classism and economic racism pushes into that stuff, then that becomes less and less opportunities for kids.
Yeah.
And as an implicit bias training tool, what I'm supposed to do right now is think about my own kids. That's a tool that I have right now as I'm talking to you about the school to prison pipeline.
Yeah.
Is to not think about your kids, not to think about kids from anywhere else. It's to think about my kids. That's how we're going to get through these problems.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty good. That's a good way to look at it. How
I would feel if social forces were restricting their options.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to think about my two little guys.
Wow. There has been in the past recent history. Well, let me go back because we had a really good argument with my co-host on Monday.
Oh, I was just say you and I have.
Not you. No,
you and I haven't had a good argument in a while.
We were talking about the crack epidemic of affecting the black community, and how the government at that time had no reinforcement to help these people that were in this crisis.
Mm-hmm.
But now, and I don't want to make it about race technically, but I do want to ask you about the opioid crisis that is now.
Yeah.
You see the resources, you see the information, you see the Narcan in most spaces. Talk to me about the opioid epidemic in Lake County first, and then I'll tackle a different question from that.
Yeah, so this was one of the questions I got. I was at a high school today in Zion, and this was one of the first questions I got. Obviously fentanyl, one pill can kill.
Yeah.
And that's changed, by the way. That's different than when you and I were younger. The fentanyl crisis is real.
Yeah.
And so this idea that one pill can kill is, something that we got to say to all of our kids.
Yes.
Again,
yes.
Thinking about my own kids, right?
Yes.
I talked to them about it the other day. And so first of all, we got to think about that that moment where you're really talking to a kid, and all of us have to continue to push our education efforts. We have secured some settlement funds that we are going to begin to get to nonprofits who are going to give more and more treatment to people so that we can get on top of this crisis. I'm very proud to be one of the leaders. I'm not the boss, but I'm on the executive board of the Lake County Opioid Initiative, which was absolutely started by my predecessor. And he gets a lot of credit with me for starting the Lake County Opioid Initiative. We got to make it bigger. We got to make it better. We got to work with law enforcement more. We got to keep doing what we're doing. Yeah. But I will give credit. I will give credit.
Sure.
I will give credit, but I'm also gonna say when I disagree with the past. But he absolutely started that. And we need to keep working through the Lake County Opioid Initiative. Chelsea Laliberte is the leader of that. She's a friend. She's a friend and a political supporter because she knows that I've got the right, that she knows that I've got the right mindset to this, which is that we can balance all these things. We can increase treatment. We can use our settlement dollars to get them to nonprofits. Dr. Carner, again, see how I kind of planted that? See? Yeah. Dr. Carner has pushed for additional funding in our schools. This guy's amazing, by the way. Yeah. Dr. Carner has pushed for additional funding in our schools to educate kids about fentanyl. We can do all of these things. One of my biggest frustrations in the ongoing debates about our justice system and our legal system is that people think these things are mutually exclusive. Well, if you just do this, then this won't happen.
Yeah.
We got to work in all areas.
Yeah.
At the same time, fentanyl dealers they know what they're doing at this point. Look, this isn't somebody who I'm dealing some marijuana and there was a little bit of fentanyl in there. Okay.
Yeah.
We're talking about fentanyl dealers.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And under the Safety Act, we can hold them. They can't just use their cash to get out. So we are holding fentanyl dealers.
Yeah.
We are holding them accountable. We are prosecuting them.
How do you charge that?
That's just drug dealing.
Well, if someone was to pass away from consuming a pill, fentanyl, and you found out who the dealer was,
absolutely
take him. How do you?
So
charge
that's called drug-induced homicide.
Gotcha.
And so drug-induced homicide is where the police do the investigation to figure out if Joe is the dealer who gave the fentanyl to the person who passed away.
Gotcha.
And that's called drug-induced homicide. My main, I think, achievement in this area when we talk about drug-induced homicide is training law enforcement to do all the things. We bought Faraday bags, which is what you put a phone in to make sure that you don't lose the data. And we've done training after training after training and instituted new protocols and new trainings for law enforcement to bring us these cases. And so that's what we want. We want law enforcement to bring us the case. We will then approve the charge. People may not know this, but in Illinois, by the way, it might be different in Indiana, I don't know. In Illinois, law enforcement has to bring us the case. We only investigate very, very small types of cases, public corruption, and some others, if there's a conflict of interest. And so they bring us the cases, and so they have to have the training to put together who the dealer is, and we go from there.
Gotcha.
That's what drug-induced homicide is.
Gotcha.
But you can also, we also prosecute fentanyl dealers, even if
not dealing with a homicide.
Yeah, not dealing with a homicide, but you could also prosecute the fentanyl dealer if you're like, well, I think he's the right one. If they're a fentanyl dealer, you prosecute him if you catch them with the drugs.
Got you. What are your biggest accomplishments during your term as state's attorney, and how have they impacted public safety in Lake County?
Wow. I'm really proud. of a lot of stuff. We have a human trafficking
Give me the
task
biggest
force.
one. Your
All right,
baby.
all right.
Your baby.
My baby is the Gun Violence Prevention Initiative.
Okay.
Because it's telling everybody, it's telling the world that we can prevent violence. Even just the words, right?
Yeah.
The Gun Violence Prevention Initiative. And I think it's saving lives.
Sure.
And we should spend millions to save every life. And so I'm proud that I hope I'm changing the conversation in Lake County about prevention, that we're connecting more with 501c3s, that we're hiring trained mediators and youth specialists to get there. But like I said a minute ago, there are multiple approaches to this. We also have a violent crime unit, which are two of our most experienced prosecutors. This is a headcount increase, okay? Two of our most experienced prosecutors who only do these. They're not distracted with other types of cases. They only do these murders. It's such a small step, but my predecessor didn't focus on it at all. We have massively upgraded our cyber lab so that police can get into cell phones with warrants and find the bad guys. That's why our clearance rates are in the 70s and 80s. And it's a simple step. And I'm not a hero for investing more in the cyber lab. But again, it's this innovation. It's these new approaches. And so all of that is one of the reasons that crime is going down. And that's why I get so frustrated when she just says, well, I'm soft on crime. Crime is going down. We are winning our trials and clearing more murders. Violent crime is not going up. It is going down because of these things we are doing. And I'm humble about the fact that there are multiple reasons, but she can't lie about me and say violent crime is up when it's not. Her flyers say violent crime is up. It is absolutely down. And so I'm very proud that we've increased the number of domestic violence prosecutors. You would want as small a caseload for those prosecutors as possible. We've increased the number of domestic violence prosecutors. We've built this human trafficking task force, which has never been done. When I became state's attorney, the CEO of the executive director of a safe place said, Eric, there are 100 human trafficking victims that we've identified. Do you know how many prosecutions we did in 2020? That's the year I came in, so in the year before, zero. Zero. We are now prosecuting human traffickers, one of the heaviest and worst crimes. That's what I'm saying. She calls me soft on crime. Somebody better ask her, but he built a human trafficking task force. Just talk about that for a second, Ms. Cole. What does that mean that he built that? How can you say he's soft on crime when he built an entire new task force? Doesn't mean she agrees with all of my decisions, but somebody needs to ask her that. And so how can a guy be soft on crime while he's increasing resources in the cyber lab? How can you be soft on crime when you're increasing the clearance and the solve rates? These are big, important steps. This job takes strategic planning. It takes innovation. It takes passion. It takes talking about tough things, even if it's unpopular. It means talking about tough things, even if it's unpopular. It means walking into a room where not everybody agrees with you. Not everybody agreed. A lot of people didn't agree with me in that debate tonight because there's a lot of old school people there.
Sure.
You felt it. Am I wrong? Tell me I'm wrong.
I seen it, man.
Okay.
I seen it.
You got to walk into those rooms, and I am proud of the rooms that I've walked into.
I felt weird walking into that.
You felt what?
I felt weird going in there tonight. No, I'm joking. We got some more comments. Tim, if you can go back up a little bit. We got Anthony McIntyre at Mount Foundation in the building. How would you reduce the pressure of that pipeline? He's talking about that prisoner pipeline. How do you reduce that? How do you reduce that?
So it is to make sure that the real youth mentors. I'm not a youth mentor. I'm a prosecutor. I'm a strategic planner for preventing crime. We got to make sure that the youth mentors. You're a youth mentor, Carlos. Have what they need to really reach into these kids. You know, I said a moment ago that data was one of the things that I thought would be easier. I think more connectivity with schools was going to be something I expected a little more of. Can I just leave that there? I thought connectivity with schools was going to be a little bit easier. I think one of the barriers to that, I don't think there's any bad faith here. I think one of the barriers to that is confidentiality rules. I'm really interested in my next term of thinking about whether these confidentiality rules, which are vital to protecting information, I want to make sure that they're not a barrier to mentoring.
I think that's important.
I want to make sure they're not a barrier.
It's important because I think that, especially where we live, the teens are involved in a lot of what's happening in our neighborhoods, and that could, like you said, misguide. And we need more mentors. We need more programming. But if you have some interface, some type of program that directly connects to the biggest source of kids, which is the schools, that would help us a lot.
We got to pay. We got to pay our teachers more.
We got to pay our
teachers more. I'm the son of two teachers. We got to pay our teachers more.
Sure.
We got to encourage great teaching. We have amazing teachers. They are public servants.
Definitely.
We got to make sure that they stay and that they feel appreciated.
Speaking of mentors, speaking of parents, I walked into a Popeyes. And this guy walks up to me and says, Carlos, I know you have an interview with the state's attorney.
Oh, all right.
I need you to ask him this question.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget it because the passion in which he spoke was about his kid. He spoke about a situation that I can't speak out on camera, but it was mostly about felony murder.
Oh, okay.
And about how do you charge it, what is it, and what are the different modules that felony murder is activated in?
How long you got? All right, so felony murder is, I'll give the quick law school answer. The law school answer on felony murder is during the commission of a violent felony. I mean, I'm already starting to lay down the rules here, folks. I called it violent and I called it a felony.
Okay.
It can't be driving on a revoked license. It can't be driving on a revoked license and somebody has a heart attack because you're giving them a ride. That's not what we're talking about. Right. Felony driving on revoked doesn't lead to, oh, wow, you were giving that guy a ride, now he had a heart attack. No, that's not felony murder. During the commission of a violent felony, if somebody dies during that commission of the felony, that's felony murder.
Got you.
It can be used, I'm sorry to have to use a sports analogy, it's very serious stuff. It can be used across teams, though. And what I mean by that is four armed robbers can run towards a bank, but if a security guard shoots robber 4, the other 3 have committed felony murder. You see what I'm saying? I went across teams. The security guard is fine.
Yeah.
Right? He or she is justified.
Sure.
Okay, they're running towards the bank with their... It's like that movie Heat. I love Heat.
Yeah, that's a good movie.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, there's some felony murder in that movie, okay?
Pacino,
Okay, and so, they're running toward... Okay, and the security guard kills... or the police kill the Michael Madsen character. Okay, all those guys are going down for felony murder. Wow. Even though they didn't kill anybody. I think they do kill people. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. They're going down for felony murder for Michael Madsen's death. Wow. Okay, that's what felony murder is, across teams. Wow. That's traditional felony murder. Illinois got rid of that one.
Okay.
Illinois got rid of that one. It is now only if an innocent person dies.
Gotcha.
Okay, so if the robber dies, they can't charge. I mean, the other robbers got all types of problems.
Sure.
In Heat, right? They're all going down for big stuff anyway.
Yeah.
So Illinois changed the rule that now says, okay, it's only if an innocent person, basically, on the other team, dies, that's now felony murder.
Gotcha. Because the example that I had, if I can I'll give a blank example, just like you did.
Yeah.
If I'm with my friend, we go outside. I don't know if the police has to prove that I knew what he was going to do.
Probably.
Right. That's the question.
I gave you the easy one with the armed robbers.
Yeah. Sure. They have to be able to prove that I knew that my guy was going to do something and I was with him and helped him, or maybe I was just in the car and he went in and did it, but they have to prove my knowing of the crime.
Yeah, so if you're helping, so if you're helping the commission of the violent felony, the problem is you're not inside the bank,
right,
or whatever,
right,
when the shooting happens.
Right.
People, you're accountable, that just means you're equally responsible. You're equally responsible for the bank robbery. Okay. Because the night before, you were helping them plan the bank robbery. You said, I'm going to drive you there, and then we're going to drive away.
Gotcha.
Okay. Gotcha. Now, come on. You're planning the bank robbery.
Yeah.
But then the shooting breaks out on the inside.
Yeah.
You're going down for felony murder.
Wow.
It's pretty rare, though.
Okay.
It's pretty rare.
Okay.
And certainly, if you want to give my information to that person,
sure, I will.
I'm available to talk about any case that we have charged.
Gotcha.
I don't think I cannot recall charging a felony murder. No, I haven't declined one either because it hasn't come up.
Sure.
That sort of driver, bank robbery situation. Now, my predecessor charged a felony murder in 2019.
That was pretty.
Where not 4 armed robbers with AR-15s, but 4 kids with no weapons came upon a car and a homeowner shot one of them.
What was it, the Lake County 4 or something?
The Lake County 4? The Lake County 5?
5. One of those.
Well, unfortunately, so one of the people dies because the homeowner shot.
Yeah.
The homeowner wasn't ever charged with anything. My predecessor didn't charge him. I didn't charge him. But the other 3 were charged with murder.
Yeah.
Even though they weren't armed.
Wow.
Okay.
Right.
Now, could it be technically done? Okay, he did it. Should he have done it? No. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's actually how my campaign got started. I had already declared, but that was actually one of the first cases where I criticized my predecessor.
Wow. Yeah. Last question. Well, yeah, last question. Some people, and this question came through our inbox. Why? Well, let me make sure I read it right. I don't want to read it wrong. Why are you sending Clyde McLemore to jail?
All right. So I really don't want to talk about an individual case, but I can say this publicly. Okay. So this is everything I'm about to say is public.
Gotcha.
He is accused of taking a picture in a courtroom. There were rules that said you can't do that. The person who gave out the rules works for the Lake County State's Attorney's Office. Okay? That makes a critical witness in the case an employee colleague of mine. So we got off the case. Okay. Now wait. We charged it because we can make our charging decision.
Sure.
Okay. But that's not saying what's jail, what's not jail.
Yeah.
We charged it as some type of, I think it's contempt of court because there are these rules that say don't take pictures in courtrooms.
Right.
Then we moved it over to another prosecutor. There wasn't a conflict because he wasn't accused of hurting the employee in my office. That would be an instant conflict on the charging decision.
Yeah.
If you hurt an employee of the office, instant charging decision, we're out of the charging.
Gotcha.
Here, we did the charging.
Who would charge it then if you guys weren't?
We call up the attorney general or a neighboring. Great question.
Gotcha.
Or we call up a neighboring state's attorney.
Gotcha.
So in this case, we charged it and then handed it over to the other prosecutor because the trial involves the witness. We shouldn't be. It's actually totally up to us. By the way, the other thing is up to us too. These are our discretionary decisions. We didn't want to be. We can't be cross-examining or putting our own employee up there. So we had a different prosecutor's office do it.
Gotcha.
That prosecutor's office cut the deal that I think you're referring to.
Gotcha. This officially is my last question.
Okay.
Trump or Harris?
Oh, Harris.
Okay.
Harris. Harris.
Okay.
Harris. Trump is. I'm sorry. Trump is a threat to the country. We should all be able to come together and say that. Republicans named Lynn Cheney and Dick Cheney. I don't agree with Dick Cheney on anything except this. Lynn Cheney and Dick Cheney and a guy named Adam Kinzinger are Republicans. I probably don't agree with them on much. I don't know all their positions. And they still felt like they could say Trump is a threat to the country. Vote for Harris. I think people ought to be able to do that. Look, here's where we are here. In my opinion, Trump is such a threat to the country that we have now reached a time where people actually have to, I'm going to go back to that word partisan and political. I love that that's how we started and that's where we're ending.
Yeah.
It's actually partisan to not say how you feel about Trump. I have been accused of being political, but when you evade responsibility, you are being political.
Definitely.
That is the definition of political. If you want to say you're undecided, in order to, by the way, I did see this part of your show a week ago. If you want to say you're undecided in order to get votes, that is the definition of political. It's okay if people disagree with me. It's okay if people want to find me on the street and say, wait, Eric, I don't think Trump is a threat to the country. But you know where I stand. We've reached a point where people should say where they stand and people should say where they feel. He's talked about arresting his opponents. He's talked about shutting down the media, and he's talked about ending elections. If people of all parties aren't going to come together to stop this guy, we're going to be really, 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 really sorry.
Wow. I'm sorry. I love you, but we got one more.
You promised me.
I know. It's like 3. I always do this. I should never say it's the last one. These questions are crazy. Is it true, in all caps, that your opponent, Mary Cole, in all caps, is paying Clyde McLemore to take down your signs all over the county of Lake?
I don't know. I'm not going to make false accusations against anyone. My opponent has made a lot of false accusations against me, and I think we should end the culture of wrongful accusations in Lake County. I don't know the answer to that, so I'm going to say I don't know.
Gotcha. It's a guy undecided watching this right now in his house. A woman's undecided.
Yeah.
Talk to him in the camera. Tell him why they should vote for you.
On me, not on Harrison.
No.
I hope you've heard me. I hope you've heard me talk about the problems of safety and justice in a way that is the way that you and I could talk over a beer or a coffee. I think these problems are tough. I think that decades, if not centuries, of politicians have evaded these conversations about whether it's data, whether it's implicit bias, whether it's what we need to do to invest in safety upstream, whether it's prevention. And I hope that I am the candidate, and I'm the current state's attorney. I hope I'm the candidate that says we got to have adult, mature conversations about this, not talking platitudes, but talk about real solutions. And even if people disagree with me on things, I think I've made the office more transparent. I think I've made it more available. We've had more town halls than ever. I believe in data so that you can hold me accountable. Violent crime is down. We got to get it to zero. That's my urgent goal that I will work for every day in this job.
Beautiful. I think leaving out on these comments, it would be beautiful. Scroll back up, Tim, and give me a little bit. Shay Jackson says, I'm definitely voting for Eric Rinehart. Both of your interviews helped me form my decision. Wow, that's great. Thank you so much, Shay. Jeremiah Sargent says, I think I've changed my position on Cole, all in for Rinehart.
Wow. Are you only going to read good ones? Because
these are only last three. I don't, if someone says it, I'll read it. I promise you, I'm not making this up. Casey, I can't even read that.
I want to end on an up one.
Yes. She says, my lifelong Republican father is voting for Rinehart.
Wow.
So, hey, the Unfiltered, Lake County Unfiltered has helped people understand the political atmosphere in Lake County. That's why we did this slate. That's why we thought it was important to bring these people on, because you are voting for them. We want you to know their positions. We want you to know who they are and what they stand for, and that's why Lake County Unfiltered is here. It's the Boileau's Crazy. If you knew better, you do better. I need 2 sweaters. I want to thank my host, Eric Rinehart. We'll see y'all next Wednesday. Peace. Y'all be good.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you, Carlos, for a great conversation.
Always.
It's a crazy ride show. Hold up, you know that we bustin', yeah. It's a crazy ride show. Hold up, you know that we bustin', yeah. Yeah, you know that we bustin', yeah. We the topic discussion, yeah. It's a crazy ride show. Man, you know that we bustin', yeah. It's a crazy ride show. Hold up, you know that we bustin', yeah. It's a crazy ride show. Hold up, you know that we bustin', yeah. Yeah, you know that we bustin', yeah. We the topic discussion, yeah. It's a crazy ride show. Man, you know that we bustin', yeah. It's a crazy ride show. Hold up, you know that we bustin', yeah. It's a crazy ride show. Hold up, you know that